fiddle, 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 fiddle at fern. Seasons will turn.
Ostrich ferns are plentiful here in the Connecticut River Valley because they love the rich alluvial soil. These plants quietly thrive in damp, shady areas, hidden from view. What I'm looking for are the undeveloped fronds, which are tightly coiled into spirals, or what are known as fiddleheads. These are the fiddleheads right here that I want. They're about 2 to 3 inches high when they're ready to collect. Just take 1 or 2 from each clump. This is the perfect size for collecting. These ferns are too tall to use. I don't gather any more than 2 per clump because that would be irresponsible foraging. When you go out and collect plants, you have to be respectful and leave some plants so that next year they will return. Unfortunately, some people are unscrupulous. When I've been foraging, I've found some clumps completely decimated by people who don't care about the environment or the plant. Fiddlehead season is very, very short. It's only about 2 weeks, so you have to really be aware of when they're ready, which is usually at the end of April. Collect them as soon as they're up because you won't have much time, especially if it rains and the sun comes out the next day. They can grow 3 to 4 inches a day. Not all ferns are edible. Most ferns are called fiddleheads because of the way the frond is curled like the head of a fiddle. So you need to know which ones are the best ones, and by far the best ones are the ostrich ferns. There are really no poisonous ferns, but some ferns taste much better than others. And ostrich fern is the queen of the spring. Its taste is sublime. And how do you identify them and distinguish them from other ferns that aren't so good to eat? One way is to look for the foot-high dried plumes from last year's fruiting fronds. These stalks aren't square or round. They have a distinct indentation, a track that you can run your finger along. The best time to find these is in the fall. Make note of their location and then return in the spring to collect the emerging fiddleheads. Usually the ferns grow in a clump, but many ferns do, so that's not a foolproof method of identification. Ostrich fern fiddleheads are partially covered with orangey-brown scales that resemble the outer layer of onion skin. Since non-edible fern fronds have fuzzy or whitish coverings, these papery scales are a good indication that you've found the right fern. Ostrich fern also has a very distinctive groove in its stem. It's a track that you can run your finger up and down, unlike most other ferns that are rounded or flat. This has a groove that's very similar to what you would find in a piece of celery. Now comes the fun part, picking the ferns. Bring them home to prepare. I try not to collect more than I'll use because these don't have a very long shelf life. I just collect them and usually eat them the same day. I always eat fiddleheads cooked. I never eat them raw because they may make my stomach upset. The first step, though, is to get rid of this papery brown sheath from the fern because this contains bitter tannin, which can make your ferns unpalatable. So what I usually do is I go outside and usually, hopefully there's a wind that will help me get rid of this. I unfurl the fern and blow to get rid of the excess brown material. This particular batch of ferns is a really good one. It doesn't have much of the brown paper in them. Some ferns that I get do, and it's much more work to process them. So I'll get this out in preparation for cooking them. This is the first feed of the season, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to put it in the pressure cooker and cook it for 3 minutes. If you don't have a pressure cooker, you can cook the ferns for 10 to 15 minutes in a regular saucepan. Once the ferns are cooked, I melt about 2 tablespoons butter. To this, I add the juice of half a lemon and pour the mix over the ferns. It's a really delicious and simple way to bring out their taste. I know from personal experience that getting young children and teens to eat vegetables can be frustrating. If you have picky eaters in your household, give these greens a try. They won over my 2 finicky sons.
Fiddle, 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 fiddle at Fern. What will you learn? Fiddle, 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 fiddle under your tree.